Oceify the game business podcast.
Hello everyone, I'm Yuichi Ochi, also known as Ochify. I'm a veteran uncle in the game industry, having spent about 20 years mostly on the business side of things. In this program, I share my thoughts and analysis based on industry news and stories I've seen or heard. I believe that in this day and age, it's more important to have your own unique perspective on the world rather than just knowing the information. My goal is to provide better insights to everyone involved in the business. Now, if I only talk about hard business topics, it gets tiring. So my friends actually call me the King of East Asian B-grade gourmet. Well, basically, it just means I'm a glutton. So I'd like to share some gourmet info as well. Today we'll cover industry news. And also, I recently went to see WePlay in Shanghai, so I'll talk about that. And for the food segment, I'm planning to talk about some delicious things I ate in China. Let's get started. By the way, I usually record this podcast in a studio, but I'm thinking of trying out recording while traveling from now on. Today, I'm actually in Hakodate, Hokkaido. I don't know if this trip will turn into actual work yet, but, well, fate brought me here. I'm speaking to you from my hotel room. You might hear some background noise or random sounds, but please consider that part of the charm. Game business topic. Deep dive into COLOPL. Usually, I mostly pick up information from overseas, outside of Japan, like Europe and the US. The reason is simply that there are a lot of deeply analyzed articles available there. But last time I covered COLOPL and the Japanese mobile game industry, and I realized it's important to share knowledge that I have because I am here in Japan. Insights that only I can share. I say all that to sound cool, but the reality is, this topic has just been on my mind, and I can't help but want to talk about COLOPL. It just so happens that they had their financial results briefing on November 5th, where they discussed what they're going to do moving forward. So I want to talk while looking at those materials. The numbers. As a recap, COLOPL's forecast for the fiscal year ending September 2025 is net sales 25 billion yen, operating profit 1 billion yen compared to 2020. Sales are down 42% and operating profit is down 91%. That's a steep drop. In response to these severe results, they announced a voluntary retirement program, which I touched on last time. The question is, what are they going to do now? Looking at the Japanese mobile industry as a whole, some are doing well, but generally it feels like more companies are struggling. Even if sales are maintained, profit margins are dropping. Depending on where you look, for example, comparing 2020 to last year or this year, companies like Gung Ho and Aiming are seeing their profit levels get pretty tight. It basically means new games are hard to sell. That's not the only answer, of course, but for example, a new title from Capcom gathers massive global attention. Does a new title from COLOPL gather that same level of attention from the world? Realistically, no, it doesn't. Maybe I'm being too blunt, but that's the reality. The global top 20 goal. In their presentation, COLOPL stated they aim to be in the global top 20, specifically target global top 20 in the mobile game market. Financials: consolidated net sales of 100 billion yen, operating profit of 50 billion yen. Their past record high was 84.7 billion in sales and 32.3 billion in profit. So they are aiming to surpass their historical best. I got curious, who exactly is in the global top 20 right now? I checked a site called App Magic, the free version, to see the top 100 for 2025. When I pulled the top 30 titles, the number of companies represented was exactly 20. So, simply put, to be a top 20 company, you need a title in the top 30 rankings. Who is in the top 30? Currently, there are 4 Japanese companies in that top 30. Pokemon TCG Pocket is ranked 9th for 2025. The order is Candy Crush, Pokemon TCG, Coin Master, Aniplex, Fate. Grand Order is at rank 26. Konami, eFootball is in there too, around 24th, above Toon Blast. Mixie, X-Flag, Monster Strike. Looking at these titles, Monster Strike is in the top 30 largely because it sells insanely well in Japan. Pokemon TCG Pocket sells evenly across the globe to get that position. eFootball is strong in Asia and the US, surprisingly not as much in Europe, but still a global seller. So, to get into the global top 20, you either have to sell at a top-tier level exclusively in Japan or sell widely globally. Interestingly, about half of the top 30 are Chinese companies. Tencent's dominance is incredible. Genshin Impact is there, but Honkai Star Rail is actually selling more. Also, there's Love and Deep Space, an Otomi game by Paper Games. This one is interesting. It sells quite evenly. It ranks 19th globally. While its sales in China are huge, it sells well in the US, Europe, and other parts of Asia. It has a very balanced performance. COLOPL is trying to reach a level where they can stand shoulder to shoulder with these powerhouses. How? They say they will combine COLOPL's cultivated technical skills with powerful IP. The strategy, tech plus IP, honestly, that snagged me a bit. I thought, IP really? Sure, using IP makes it easier to sell, but profitability goes down due to royalties. And if it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. And with a business scale like COLOPL's, they need to generate significant revenue. Maybe they have a massive secret weapon hidden away, which would be exciting, but it's difficult to know how to use IP correctly. For example, Pokemon Go is a location-based game that sells everywhere. But Monster Hunter now is biggest in Japan, followed by Asia, and not as huge in the West. If you think about it, it's obvious. It comes down to whether the fans of the IP overlap with the people who like that specific gimmick or genre of gameplay. Disney is a strong IP, but their location-based game came out from Dracom. Sorry, I almost said COLOPL. It's Dracom, both 4-letter katakana names. I heard the win rate there wasn't great. However, if they think it through and focus on the fun of the game, they could produce results.
OSHA 5, the Game Business Podcast.
Pipeline and development. Looking at page 28 of their deck, they mention adding 2 titles with unique gimmicks, Ichigai, to the pipeline mobile, 4 titles, PC consumer 11 titles. I was surprised they are making a lot of PC consumer games, but reading the minutes, the global top 20 goal is primarily through mobile titles. So how do they plan to handle PC consumer? The business risk is lower since it's a buy-to-play model usually, so you get money up front. Steam rankings are interesting. Top games aren't always big budget. It's split between massive AAA and amazing indies. Which camp will COLOPL fall into? Right now, neither. Great indie hits are often made by 1 or 2 people over many years, creating exactly the gameplay they want, which then sells. Small team, lots of time. But for a listed company, this is hard. You decide a release date first and stick to the schedule. Sticking to a schedule isn't bad, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is making a fun game. We aren't making industrial products. Just because you work set hours every day doesn't mean a wonderful game will roll off the assembly line. The man-month trap. When business folks crunch numbers, they look at man-month costs. Development costs X, so we need to sell Y to make a profit. It's logical, but you can overthink it. It's important, but if you get dragged around by the numbers, you forget the essence. Making a fun game. I've done this. I've failed because of this. But in a public company, if you miss a date, they ask, how will you fill the revenue hole? That's correct financially, but realistically, how do you manage creativity? At Capcom, where I used to work, the solution was long-term planning, 5, 6, 7 years out. Deciding years in advance what releases when, assigning teams, planning sales. It used to be sell it on release day and done, but now it's complex with free updates, etc. World-class makers are doing this. You can't get there overnight. COLOPL's new titles. I saw a title mentioned in an article, Kokoro Magari no Tsukuyomi. It's a card creation roguelike by a creator from the Persona/Megaten series. So this is the kind of thing they are trying. It seems to be a smartphone/PC hybrid. There's also Isekai, playable on Steam. But these are free to play for PC/consumer, especially Steam. Marketing is different. It's less about big ad spend and more about getting traction on the platform, releasing demos, etc. Nintendo has directs. I'm curious to see how COLOPL navigates this. Management and organization. On page 29, regarding global top 20, they list organization, clarifying areas of responsibility by reorganizing divisions. My immediate reaction, wait, so it wasn't clear before? HR, revamping the HR system and career transition support, which is the voluntary retirement. Management, strict management of development processes and advertising methods based on content strategy. Management, Saying you're managing things gives a sense of doing something, but management is just a means. The result is what matters. From my experience, rather than just managing, you need to design the mechanism that allows management to work. For example, regarding managing dev processes, it probably means checking if money and people are being invested at the right time. But if you just create a plan and chase it, you're just doing the work. You need a big picture. If the goal is global top 20 in 5 years, you need to map out year 1, year 3, and build the organization, personnel, and systems to match that specific picture. If you just set rules and check boxes, nothing fundamentally changes. I've seen that happen a lot. I don't know if COLOPL is like that, but I hope they avoid that trap. Conclusion on COLOPL. They mention growth potential and their strengths. Ultimately, this is a case where we have to check the answers in 5 years. Usually, you see results in 3 to 5 years. The game world is simple. Put out a game that sells, get financial results. COLOPL has plenty of cash, so they are in an environment where they can take challenges. I have high expectations. I'll put links to the materials I used in the show notes.
Oshify the Game Business Podcast.
Moving on the weekend of November 22nd and 23rd, the WePlay indie game event was held in Shanghai. China has huge indie game organizations, and the China Indie Game Alliance organized this. It was held on the second floor of a hall used for the expo. It was my first time going. I heard the scale was smaller than last year, but there were many exhibitors from China and Japan. Shueisha Games, Shochiku, Level 5 was there. Also, Mahou Shoujo no Majo Saiban, The Witch Trial of the Magical Girl. That one is selling well in China. They also had a Nintendo Switch 2 successor exhibit. Wait, no, just game intros. And peripheral makers. My impression, it felt like a manageable Bit Summit. Not as crammed as Bit Summit, but plenty to see. Since it's indie-focused, you can play games and talk to the creators. It was casual and good. Level 5 and AI in development. The highlight was, and I just happened to be there, Mr. Hino from Level 5 came, did a stage event and held a signing session. The latest Fantasy Life sold quite well in China, apparently without much advertising. If you make something wonderful, people notice. I didn't hear his whole speech, but one thing stuck with me. He talked about the speed of development. Games take too long now. A 2-year project becomes 3 or 4 years. He's concerned about this and mentioned they are researching how to use AI within the company to speed up parts of the process. It makes sense. We're seeing things like Ubisoft's demos using in-world for AI NPC dialogue or auto-generated maps. Since games take 3 to 5 years to make, if you start using tech now, the results show up in 3 years. So level 5 is probably early on the curve. I know Korean companies were using AI for debugging as far back as 2012 or 2013. adoption is fast, but we haven't reached the point where everyone is using it to create massive changes yet. But it's a matter of time. It was a very memorable talk to hear at an indie event.
Oceanify, the Game Business Podcast.
Next is the food talk. Since I was in Shanghai, well, it's not limited to Shanghai, but whenever I go to China, the one thing I absolutely must eat, what makes me truly happy, is lamb meat, specifically the skewers. We see them more in Japan now, and in Korea they have yankochi places where the skewers rotate automatically on the grill. About 6 or 7 years ago, when I used to go to Shanghai often for business, I stayed near a place called Great World, Dashijie. If you go to Great World Station, subway line 8 or 14, take exit 1 and turn right, there are 3 lamb meat restaurants lined up in a row. They have skewers, of course, and also hot pot. Eating it shabu-shabu style is delicious too. You can get internal organs, liver, etc. But when I order hot pot, I also order skewers. You can choose heart, liver, etc. But I like just the standard grilled meat. And I like them big. Some places serve tiny pieces, like the Korean style ones are often small. I want the big ones. Ideally 1.5 centimeters to 2 centimeters cubes. At these shops, they grill the skewers outside over charcoal, so it's incredibly fragrant and delicious. In China, it's called Yangrou Chuan. It's actually a specialty of Xinjiang Uyghur, not Shanghai, but you can eat it all over China. Within the vast world of Chinese food, I just love those Xinjiang lamb skewers.
Oceanify, the Game Business Podcast.
That's it for the ending. Please send me your feedback. You can reach me on X, formerly Twitter, at @OchiYuichi, or if you know my personal contact info, that works too. If you think my analysis was wrong, please point it out. If there's a topic you want me to cover, let me know. I'm thinking of inviting guests starting next year, maybe once every 2 episodes. I'm already brainstorming who would be interesting. I have about 4 or 5 candidates. Wonder what we'll talk about. Since I do this bi-weekly, I'll probably do 1 more episode this year. I'll cover the Steam rankings for November plus something else. Stay insightful. Until then, let's meet again in your ears.